Hello and welcome to all beautiful souls out there. You're listening to the Restore My Soul podcast with Princess Millens, your favorite grief coach and emotional wellness specialist. In this space, we will help those who struggle with grief and loss and have real conversations about how to overcome it in every area of life. Through our personal stories, practical information, and wisdom from Princess and her special guests. We are here to educate, inspire, and empower you with the strategies you need in your emotional healing journey. We do not offer medical advice, but we believe that we can all learn to heal by creating a mindset to grow past our pain and push toward our purpose. Our goal is to remind you that grief is a journey and you do not have to walk it alone. No matter what the pain or loss is, you can be restored and live fully in your purpose. So let's push through the pain together as we share our stories of resilience, one episode at a time.
Well, welcome in everybody to another episode of Restore My Soul podcast. I'm so happy and elated that you are here and joining us today for this episode. We are here to empower and teach you and to inspire you in your emotional healing journey. And we are having real conversations around it with real people, real conversations, real adversity, real breakthrough, so that we can overcome and be all that God has called us to be. So I'm very excited. I'm your host, Princess Millens, your favorite grief and emotional wellness specialist. And we are here again for another episode. Can you believe it? And so we have a very, very special guest today. She is so near and dear to my heart. We have in the studio today, Stephanie Williams. She is the CEO and founder of Stephanie Speaks, Destined to Conquer, and she is a published author, and she is an empowerment speaker. That's what I like to call her, right? And transformation coach. And she has been featured in so many media, video, and interviews. Stephanie has a passion about empowering audiences and her clients with step-by-step systems that they can release that pain and that hurt. And she has proven techniques that she uses in her business that easily connect the client with identifying themselves to be truly free and to be truly who God has called them to be. So Stephanie has a long life commitment to being the best of her clients, and so that she can remove those blinders, right, of limiting beliefs. And that's all in what encompasses a transformation coach, is that you can take the blinders off, the blinders of limiting beliefs placed by others and ourselves, right? That causes those things to come up in our lives so that they can flourish in their gifts and their talents. So I just want to welcome to the podcast today, Stephanie Williams. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, I'm excited to be here.
Well, this has been a long time coming. We were supposed to do this thing a couple of times ago, but hey, we're here now, right? And
Praise
I know I know, right? So we're going to have this conversation. I know that will bless the audience that will watch and listen, and just a conversation about stepping outside of our comfort zone, right? And
Yes.
Finding our healing and growth that leads us to our purpose, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
we just going to dive into this conversation, and we just going to let the Holy Spirit flow, right? So
yes, amen.
I want you to first just kind of say who you are, maybe some things about you that's important that you want people to know, and pretty much how did you become a transformation coach? What things led to that?
Of course. So I love the introduction. Thank you, first of all. So to tell you a little bit about why I became a transformation coach. I became a transformation coach in the process of my own healing. And while I was healing through the things that I went through and experienced in my life, it was revealed to me that I've been through a lot of things and through the trenches of life. I mean, in a big hole, like didn't feel like I could get out of it, right? And most of us go through that in life. Most of us, life just be keep on lifing, right? So it's like we're always in a transition. We're always like trying to survive, right? And I had to remove myself from the survival mentality and get into a thriving mode. So that's where transformation coaching was birthed, through my own healing and watching other people go through similar things as me and still be struggling, you know. And I was like, how can I help them? I know that I've went through things and I've overcome some things, and I want to be able to help the next person to overcome the things that they're going through, you know.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people get blinded with life, you know, and it becomes more difficult for them to even see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
You know? So that's why I became a transformation coach. That's the whole main reason.
Yeah, because we know that the things that we go through is not only for us, it's for us to heal, to help somebody else heal, and for their deliverance, and for them to be set free from them things that have them hindered from living their life, right? And this is what I know.
For them to, a lot of us, also for them to live in purpose, because out of all of that, out of all of the chaos that you're going through, guess what? There's purpose intertwined in it. And that pressure of life is supposed to be there. It's supposed to push us into the purpose, you know? It's not there for us to sink. Just like this Jesus with the boat, right? Like it's not there for us to sink. It's actually there to push us into purpose.
Yeah. And a lot of us, we sit and we suffer in silence, right? We suffer in silence because, as I've stated many, many times, is that a lot of us did not grow up feeling comfortable or even knowing how to discuss the grief, the pain, the trauma in our lives. And so we grew up, we kind of got through it. We grew up and we realized that we still had those things that we never dealt with. And then the things that we never dealt with, it also compounded with the things that we're now going through. And so, it just makes a whole thing, because we just, in our communities, it just wasn't common. We were taught to just kind of get over it. And, and even for us, women, we are seen as so strong and being able to handle a lot. And a lot of times, because we wear the crown, don't mean that it's not heavy, right? So we suffer in silence. And I heard you talk about survival, right? Sometimes we go through a lifetime of surviving, and that kind of prevents us from thriving in the life that God has called us to be. So can you talk a little bit about some things that you have survived and you have overcome?
Sure. Yes, most definitely. So I would start off with my childhood. I was a foster child from the age of 4 years old until I aged out at 18 years old. And in the midst of foster care, I did go through a few family, and then a group home, then back to that same family, and then to another family. And in the midst of that, I went through abuse. I went through physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse. And that in that stage of my life, I was younger, of course, and it was difficult to go through. And even it obviously transpired to my adult life, because I ended up getting into a marriage that was also abusive and that I allowed and accepted into my life, and even married knowing that he was abusive.
Yeah.
So, and had children. So it's like, it's a cycle that keeps on following us until we actually sit down and deal with ourselves and deal with the issues that are inside of us, and just being able to pour it out, pour it all
Yeah.
out and surrender. That's the key point right there to going from
Mhm.
survival mode to thriving.
Good.
We have to surrender. We cannot hold on to things. We cannot blame people. We cannot look at the outside of us. We have to look within to deal with those inner issues from childhood until now. And it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all to sit in and deal with.
Yeah, it's not comfortable at all. And I think that is the thing, that is one of the main things that prevents people from doing that inner work, right? They're afraid of what they might discover and uncover as they begin to heal, but it's very necessary if we want to be free. And so I heard you say the word surrender, right? And it's very important to surrender what we think, to surrender our pain, right? So those of us who are believers, we surrender our pain to God himself, right? You know, because the word says that we cast our cares on him because he cares for us. And so
yes, he does.
You're right. It becomes a pattern. And sometimes I believe some people don't see the pain. They don't see the trauma. They may or may not know your story, but they can't see your internal struggles that you are going through, right? Sometimes our internal struggles manifest in physical form or things that people can see. Sometimes not, right? Sometimes not.
Yes.
Sometimes not. Because I know I went through depression, suicidal thoughts, all of that, and nobody knew. Because I went to work smiling. Everywhere I went, I was still smiling and, trying to pull myself together to not be sad all the time or going to depression. But I was really depressed, right? I guess you would call me walking depressed, if that's a word. But I want you, and you can fall into that pattern. But I want you to kind of share, what did that pattern look like for you when you were going through the pain and the trauma of your past, even in your marriage? What are some of the things that that maybe have manifested and as pain for you?
So I would say things that I went through during the transition of holding on to my pain and surrendering my pain, I would say that I went through depression. I went through anger. I went through,
that's a big one.
Denial.
Wow.
Blaming myself. And honestly, I was at a point where I was even disliking myself. Like, I was like, really, Stephanie? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like I had to face my reality. And it wasn't a place that I wanted to be at. However, it was a place I needed to be at, and I had to sit with it. And plus, while I was in transition of healing, I was also in school. So every day I went to school learning about, every day I was going to school, living on purpose, but I was in a marriage that was tearing me down. I mean, tearing me down. And I would be working at a job that I loved. I would go work, I didn't even want to go home. There was times where I didn't even want to go home. And I just started hating the life I was living, the life that I was accepting. I was hating it. And I had to come to a place and a position to say, enough is enough. I need to make change. I was here trying to change him, and I needed to change myself. So that's when I sat down, and that's when I surrendered. And I said, okay, it's time for me to change. So I started focusing on me. That was my main goal, was me and getting myself out of the trenches. And either he will follow or he will have to be let go. And I left that in God's hands. And I said, I let you take over. It didn't happen immediately, but eventually I was like, it's time for me to release you. We can no longer be in this marriage. This marriage is not conducive for me or for my kids, our kids.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to communicate. I had to learn to communicate because I was starting to become angry. So when I would communicate, it would be angry words. And then I was going through the transition of healing. And then I said, no, I can't talk like that. I'm healing and I need to allow him the space to heal. But when I was allowing him the space to heal, he wasn't there. And I couldn't force him to be there. I had to release him though. Because eventually, if I'm healing and he's not, I'm going to be pulled back down. And that's not where I want it to be. And like you were saying, sometimes it takes like over our physical body. And I was having seizures in my sleep. I was starting to have seizures again. And seizures, I had stopped having seizures for since I was 20 years old. And then I was back to having seizures. And even after my divorce, I started like I started doing more things. I started putting the cape on and getting involved in activities and doing things around, doing things for the church, doing things for the community, doing things for my business, doing things for the nonprofit, doing things. So I was like putting my arms and hands out everywhere I could think of, right? And I started having seizures again because I was overextending myself. So sometimes we could do that too. We could distract ourselves from the healing that we need. Like this leads me to even say that 2 years ago, God moved me to Texas from Florida. And in that time when I was in Texas, he was also putting me through some healing. I was healing. He was preparing me for a new season. And I couldn't pour out because he wasn't allowing me to pour out because he needed to deliver me from certain things, from certain people. He had to release me from those things and silence me so that I can hear him. So
And it seems like from a lot of what you said, it has been a process of just surrender.
Yes.
We don't have to be held captive by our pain, by our struggles, by all of that. And I know really what that feels like as far as overworking or overextending yourself is a trauma response.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't see that. They don't know. They don't recognize that, and they just kind of think you're normal. People will say you're being so strong, and if they know what you've been through, but they don't realize that is a trauma response, and it can lead to different other things. Overextending your body, overextending your mind, your emotions, all of that leads to burnout, leads to more stress, leads to all these other things, right? And so we see that it's a process of inner work that we have to do. And the biggest thing that I am hearing you say, it is all about surrender. And so I want to kind of ask you, because I heard you say anger was a part of what kind of manifested with you, as well as the blaming and things like that. So when we are going through pain and trauma, why is it that we blame ourselves? I hear that a lot, but I never really kind of unpack that. So can you unpack the reason why maybe that happened? Because a lot of things we do to ourselves to bring pain, but sometimes it's external. It's other people that brings us pain, like our ex-spouses or the people that, friendships that were abandoned and things like that. But why do we blame ourselves when we're not at fault? Kind of unpack that for me, just a few minutes.
We blame ourselves, like, because, well, I know that I blame myself because I felt like I probably could have done more. I felt like I put myself in that position. I felt like I allowed this to happen for so long, and it started to become a part of me, and it tore me. It broke me apart, and I felt like it was becoming a part of my identity, and who I was. And I know I had more for my life. I know when I was 13 years old, I wrote down on a PowerPoint what my life was to look like when I graduated from high school. And I know that my life did not look like that. So I blamed myself, and I was angry with myself because of the fact that I wasn't where I wanted to be. And I allowed things to happen. I allowed things to come into my life in a temporary situation and made it permanent. And that's why it's important to have self-forgiveness first. Because when we learn to forgive ourselves, then we learn to forgive others. True forgiveness, not just say, I forgive you for what you've done and then walk away. No, true forgiveness, sitting with yourself, loving on yourself, showing yourself who you are again, rebuilding yourself up, and saying, Stephanie, I love you. Stephanie, I care about you. Stephanie, you are someone. Stephanie, you're going to go somewhere. Just keep on speaking life. And that, I think that's why we blame ourselves, is because we wanted more for our life, and it ended up being something else.
That's good. I love that, because it explains a lot, right? It explains a lot.
Yes.
And a lot of things that we don't even think that we can blame ourselves for, we end up doing that. You know what I'm saying? Even when people pass away.
Right.
Even
and I want
when
to
people
add
pass
to that.
away. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I want to add to that, it's not regretting, it's just blaming ourselves. But it's not regretting the things that we've gone through, because the things that we went through is a part of our purpose. It's not a part of who we are, but it's a part of our purpose. So everything connects. So God already has our pathway cleared before us. It's a choice. What we choose is a choice, So at the end of the day, even if we choose left and not right, we're still going to get to right, but it's just going to take us longer to get there, because we took a detour and went the opposite way that God desired us to go. Even though we took that detour, guess what? His purpose is still going to be in alignment, because you chose that path. So now you got to learn to let go so that you can be able to get back on the right track.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because God, he knows the plans that he has for us, right? And it's all, he knows the end from the beginning. And so since we know that, I'm glad you brought that out, is that it's not necessarily a regretful time. It's a time to realize that you went through it for something, and it's part of your story. And that is really why your story matters. Every piece of it is not to regret, is not to blame, is not to be angry or anything like that. It's just to learn from it, pick up the pieces, do the inner work, surrender, like you said, and walk in your purpose, right?
Yes.
So thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here today. Before we leave, I want you to tell everybody how to connect with you, where to follow you on social media and everything.
Yes, of course. So you can follow me on Facebook underneath Stephanie Williams, my name. And then I also have a business page called Stephanie Speaks. And I have an Instagram under the name Steph, STEPH Speaks, SPEAKS. You could go ahead and follow me on those pages, as well as I do have a website, www.destinedtoconquer.com.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Stephanie, for being here. It was an honor to interview you today, and blessings for everything that God has for you in the future.
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening in and viewing in and tuning in with us on this episode of Restore My Soul podcast. Remember to follow me on all social media at Princess Millens and my website at princessmillens.com. Remember that grief is a journey, but you don't have to walk it alone, and we're going to do it together every episode. And I will see you in the next episode of Restore My Soul podcast.
Thank you for joining another episode of Restore My Soul podcast. Be sure to listen and watch each week as we continue the conversation on how to bounce back from the setback of grief and loss, and to become resilient so that you too can thrive in life. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. And share this with as many people as possible so they can be encouraged in their emotional wellness journey. We invite you to follow Princess Millens on all social media platforms and on the website at princessmillens.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Restore My Soul podcast.